Hello and welcome, Facebook friends. It is a very happy Friday, and that means it is time to dig into the mailbag. We all asked you a question, which I'm going to get to, but I want to first pose another question, just kind of off the top of the head here. Are you guys getting coronavirus fatigue? What are you feeling out there? Are you sick and tired of hearing about this thing? Are you kind of like, all right, let's move on here. Let's get the world going. I was curious to know what you think. If you have a thought on that, go ahead and comment below. If you're just getting like, I just don't want to hear about this thing anymore. I want to get back to some kind of normal life. I'm getting the feeling from many of you here looking on the Facebook page, just showing some frustration, some fatigue, and just kind of malaise about this whole thing that just seems to be ongoing and never ending. So want to get your thoughts on that. But earlier in the week, we posed this question to you. Local governments across the country have taken very different measures to contain the virus, but ensuring public safety without stifling the economy is a delicate balance. How has your local government handled this crisis, and do you approve? So we got a number of responses I want to get to. I want to first maybe answer the question myself. I'm here in Pinellas County, Florida, which is same county that has, I'm about 10, 15 minutes north of Clearwater, and then below that we have St. Petersburg, or St. Pete as we all call it here. And we've got beaches, restaurants, that whole thing. And I love it here. I've been living here for about 16 years, and it's just been great. Now, what you really saw, you saw a contrast of everybody basically had some sort of a variation of a lockdown order going on. But my county was, I think, compared to the ones that I've heard, has been pretty lax. We shut down, things like a lot of the retail stores, the restaurants, salons, gyms, all that sort of stuff. But for the most part, you could still shop at the big box stores. But most importantly, for me, and particularly my lifestyle, all the county parks and all the city parks in my area stayed open. Every single one of them. None of them closed down. Now, if you go just to Hillsborough, which is just to the east where the city of Tampa is, in that county, they're still shut down. We went to one just a couple of days ago, can't get in, and which I think is absolutely nuts. So I would say, going up to Governor DeSantis, I think he's been just fine. I don't have any problem with what he's done. I think it was, at least for my local situation, it was a measured sort of lockdown, not this extreme stuff that you've been seeing. It's not like I go into a store like you hear in Michigan where they cordoned off the seeds or restricted you to buying certain items. None of that happened here. You could go if the store is open, you could buy anything in the store, which to me is completely logical. And now we're starting to see that gradual reopening. So I would give my local government and possibly the state government a thumbs up. I think they did a really good job. So let's get to your responses. This first one comes from Diane E. And so she says, lockdown of this state until, she comes from Wisconsin. They're locked down till the end of May. Apparently that's the May 25th. She says, this is unjust because there's no science to justify this date. That's a good point. Wisconsin has fewer cases and deaths than other Midwest states. And according to many doctors, being locked down for no good reasons ends up weakening the immune system to a great degree. This is not only unjust, but is tyrannical and immoral. The governor is currently being sued by our state Supreme Court. Yeah, that's something I covered earlier in the week. I don't know if I haven't checked to see if they made a ruling on that yet, because the legislature had sued the governor for this lockdown order, and this could be overturned with a court decision. So, but I think, Dan, you make a really good point here. Everybody being cooped up inside, you're not. What does that do to your immunity? And we've heard about the second wave that could come up, and these reinfections of the coronavirus. Well, what if you catch other stuff too? You're going to be more susceptible to colds, the flu, maybe not just COVID, but just general infectious stuff, because your immune system has basically not been able to, it's not keeping up the way it normally does because you're sheltered in place and your environment essentially doesn't change. I think that's a really, really good point. How are we weakening ourselves as we're staying home? So Diane here, not a fan of how her government has been handling things. We got a comment here. Stephanie Merkel, she replied in Facebook in the scheduled post. She says, "No, I think the Nazi nutter is a disgrace. I will not comply. This is just another reason to clean out the nasty from the White House to the dog catcher." Now, I don't know who the Nazi nutter is. Stephanie, if you're watching, maybe clarify that for me just a little bit. I don't know who that is, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people have the same sentiment from clearing this out from the White House on down. You mentioned dog catcher, by the way. Is that even a real thing? Is there an actual elected position of dog catcher? I guess it would be county animal control or city animal control. Is that the same thing? It's kind of curious. It's a phrase you hear all the time, but I don't know if I've actually ever seen it in reality. Like to know if do you have in your town or city, do you have an actual dog catcher? Let me know. We got a reply here from Art M. He says almost every state has violated the First Amendment when it comes to religion, and some states are using this time to violate the Second Amendment. I personally think that these violations are actually acts of treason. Art is not happy. He's not happy with. Doesn't seem like he's happy with either his local situation or really anywhere. Yeah, we see. I mean, First Amendment here. You can't go to church, right? That's the thing. They lock you out. They say you have to stay home. So you do have the right. You do have the right there. But yeah, I mean, in this time, there's something we mentioned. A video I mentioned earlier. You know, we have that Supreme Court decision from I believe it was 1905, and it was about the I believe it was a smallpox vaccine, and a pastor had sued saying he didn't want the vaccine. This kid and of course, you know, back then it was in early stages. The government says that it went all the way up to the Supreme Court that he challenged. He said, no, you have to get the vaccine. So in that case, and that's sort of the sentiment that they use now for using the lockdown and all that, is to say, look, you know, there's a time in the time of public health, some things can be suspended. And that's just where we are right now. And as you see, as we mentioned in that earlier comment there about Wisconsin, that's actually being challenged. We haven't really seen these things get worked through the court, but they will. They are. And we may see a change going forward. All right, let's move on to another response we got from James M. He says, in all capital letters, James, he doesn't, just starting off, doesn't seem like he's very happy with this. He says, I live in North Carolina. We have not been hit on county by county basis. Yet our governor, there's another saying, it hasn't been that bad, but yet our governor has chosen to keep all restaurants, hair salons, etc. closed throughout the entire state. He's being paid, not unlike millions of employees in these small operators all over the state. Yeah, so the governor's collecting a check. Meanwhile, he's telling you can't work, so you can't make a check. So good point there, James. I frankly don't think he cares. He's like a lot of other people who are loving their power and are in a hurry to give it, or are not in a hurry to give it up. Look at Virginia lockdown. They're locked down until June 15th. Crazy. I want our entire country open. The lockdown is worse than the pandemic. Age 65 and up can self-quarantine. Also, any age with health problems that compromise their safety. I mean, I think that's a good point. Look, you can open up the country and say, for the vulnerable, stay home. Just stay home. It's, it let people sort of decide what's an acceptable level of risk to them. So James clearly not happy with his governor of North Carolina. James didn't say about his local, but I think that qualifies there. So he's not happy about this state and the state of his state and the state of his country. We got another one here from Gerald S. Oh, this is a nice one. It says, Gerald, this one's a little bit longer, so just bear with me here, but I think it's worth getting through. So my wife and I are octogenarians and lifelong residents of Florida. Other than that, time spent away from, he was an active military, which he's a retiree. Thank you, Gerald, for your service there. It says, I've lived continuously in Santa Rosa County for 45 plus years, and that's up in the Panhandle. Just for as a frame of reference for everybody. And I lived there for 45 years, and we vote in every election. But in spite of our voting record, others prevail, and as a result, we have the poorest and most unresponsive state and local government in the nation, as he says, in my opinion. As far as I know, our county commissioners have not said one single word about the pandemic. The only local news we get is from an ABC TV station in neighboring Escambia County. According to the reports, Escambia County has nearly 600 plus COVID-19 cases with several hundred deaths, while my county, Santa Rosa, has 158 cases with several deaths, and the adjoining county has about 160 and some deaths. So, by the way, I happened to look that up, Gerald, if you're watching, and I'm here in Pinellas. So I looked up Santa Rosa just to do a comparison to Pinellas County, where I am. In Santa Rosa, you have a population of 184,000, and as you mentioned, 158 cases. So that's an infection rate of 0.09%. Interestingly, in Pinellas County, where I live, we have nearly 1 million people. It's 916,000 and some change. And last I checked, we had 820 cases, which is the exact same infection rate. So even despite you living in a smaller county and me living in a more populous area here, like I said, around Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and really not far from the city of Tampa, maybe about a half hour to the east. Same infection rate. So interesting there. And then Gerald goes on. Santa Rosa County runs from the Gulf of Mexico to the south end of Alabama state line. Interesting. I never made it up to the Panhandle. And he says, it seems that nobody gathers local news, but simply parrots what the Florida Department of Health tells them. In the beginning, the ABC station relayed information which pinpointed the location of COVID-19 cases by municipalities. So people had a vague idea of which places to avoid. But at some point, the reporting changed to cases by county. And that's what I've seen as well, with no specifics. I asked my state representatives by email to persuade the governor to have the health department provide specifics, but got no response. And the governor is so busy crowing about the super job he and he alone has done, just like President Trump, that he doesn't have time to take note of the ever-increasing cases in the Panhandle area. It is absolutely disgusting. Gerald S., Lieutenant, U.S. Navy, retired. Thank you, Gerald, for that. So, yeah, I've noticed the same thing. Now, although, town to town, city to city, how much of a difference does it really make? I mean, I think these would tend to just cluster. I mean, in other words, it's not likely, I don't think, that a small town would have all the cases, right? It's generally probably going to go by population, most likely. So you can kind of roughly know by that. And people move, people travel. So just because there's a case, there's 10 cases in this town, those people aren't necessarily staying home, particularly if you're not locked down. And I'm assuming you're not the way I am. I mean, I can travel. I mean, I can go anywhere, and if I have it, no, I shouldn't. But I don't know how to do it. I mean, the way I kind of look at it is, look, people just assume everybody's sick. In other words, when you're out, kind of assume that there's that danger, and that's it. I mean, I don't know how do you. No, I don't. Of course, you don't want to go to New York City where it's absolutely terrible. But I don't know what you do there. But interesting there, Gerald. You're not happy with the response you got. And yeah, maybe some detailed reporting would be better. Well, I want to thank you for those responses. I wanted to pivot just a little bit to go over some of the poll questions we had asked on our Facebook page. Going to go over some of your answers. Now, this morning, we asked you all, do you think schools at all levels should be open in this coming fall? And so far, it's a resounding 98% say yes. You want schools to be open in this fall. We got a comment here by Bill Drewley saying yes and no. If they change the curriculum instead of indoctrination, then yes. Otherwise, no. Well, Bill, I think you can assume that the indoctrination, as you call it, will continue. So then I would just say go ahead and vote no on that, because I doubt they're gonna change the curriculum. Unfortunately for you and all of us, right? We also asked you guys a poll question. At this time, do the benefits of reopening businesses outweigh the threat of spreading cases of the coronavirus? 91% said yes. You guys say the benefit of opening the businesses outweighs that reality that we're going to get more cases and we're going to get some deaths. But the thing is, in 91% of your minds, it is worth it. So I want to talk about some of the comments here. Excuse me. Michael Boyd says, having to remain homebound has been a big inconvenience, but if doing so helps save people from getting COVID-19, we must do it. So Michael was one of those 9% that said no. He says public health is the most important thing. We need to beat this thing first before we can think about reopening the economy. And then Mo Kemp responds to him saying, never mind this Hungary and the suicides or domestic violence or robberies or home invasion or more drug crime, as long as you're safe in your draconian lockdown. So Mo's not a fan of that comment. We got one from Everett Hamilton. He says, it was a monumental mistake from the outset. Fear driven by a callous media allowed politicians to use their personal whims on what is essential and non-essential work. Good point there. And I remember talking about this too. What essential versus non-essential, the way that comes down, it's really more about, it's more about the close contact stuff, which I understand. Just say, restaurants, bars, gyms, theaters, that kind of thing, concerts, that kind of thing, salons, because it's really physically close. It doesn't mean it's not essential, as opposed to, like I said, you can go into Walmart and you can buy anything you want, whether the product itself is essential or not. So what is that definition? So I just I agree with that point here, especially when it comes to work. Look, well, maybe, the business is non-essential, but, in my world, my job is essential. So how about that? Then it never makes the same point. Yeah, as I was saying here, as I'm finishing, all work is essential, just as Leonard Reed illustrated in iPencil. And that is an interesting one. Amanda South says, well, Wendy's just announced that some of their locations were out of beef. FYI, Wendy's is known for their burgers, which is made of beef, which comes from cows. So maybe you want to revise your post with how would you rather die? A, risk catching coronavirus, which numbers of death are low in comparison to the overall majority, and so survival rate is about 90% or higher. Or B, starve to death, which without food is about 100% death rate. So breaking it down there, Amanda, thank you. I didn't know Bundy's was running out of beef, so maybe I'll go run over there and see if I can get a Baconator before it runs out. Lisa Burrow says yes. Yes, opening the economy outweighs the benefits 2 weeks in. Jan Yoren says, this is so far overblown by fear-mongering. If it wasn't an election year, we wouldn't have heard much about it. That's interesting. So do you think, maybe here if you're listening, go ahead and comment here. I'm watching. I mean, if this wasn't an election year, would this be such a big deal? Would we see this? I don't know. That's a question mark. I mean, in the world we're living in now, everything has become political. So, I mean, we basically politicizing this pandemic, as they're calling it? Is that what it is? I mean, you see, it seems to be that blue states are locked down more so than red states. Although some of that is just an accident, mostly because most of the infections, or I believe, was it half the deaths come from counties within a 100-mile radius of New York. So, I mean, this is almost you could almost say a New York problem. But, others in other red states are like, no, we don't have that problem here. Go ahead and open up the state. So, all right, let's continue on with some of the comments here. It says, no, we can't live in a shell. No, we can't. Linda Hines says, excellent work. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate you watching. And if you've got a thought on this, on any of the stuff we've been talking about, tell me what's on your mind. Tell me what you're looking at. We can talk about it now. I am here. Brian Dusick says, responding here, not under the old normal and not under what government calls the new normal, but under the humanity first new normal. Now, I don't know if I can agree with that because I don't know what you mean by that, Brian, but maybe that is, hashtag humanity. I can't argue with humanity. Jerry Beckendem says, I will echo exactly what Everett Hamilton said. History will prove this to be a monumental mistake. Yeah, a lot of you are feeling that same way. Sam Campanella says, I'm not a business owner, so I really don't care either way. Okay. Well, I don't have a business, so if they're all shut down, it doesn't bother me. Okay. Well, thanks for your opinion, Sam. And Brian Dyer says the whole damn thing is a sham, globalist / Democrat sham. Yeah, I mean, it's hitting on something again that this thing does seem to be very, very politicized. You would think that maybe we can get past this, but we're not. It does seem to, these things do seem to come down, fall on political lines. Very interesting. Now, I want to go back to something that we asked you last week. We had a poll question just to follow up here, because asking if you plan on going out or shopping to a restaurant this weekend, or going out shopping or going to a restaurant. And this ended a few days ago, but actually it hasn't ended yet. You can still vote. But we did pose this on May 1st, and 65% said yes, 35% said no. I got to be honest with you. I mean, I'll answer this one myself first. I'm not comfortable going out to a restaurant yet. Now, I'm getting closer. And they're at 25% capacity. And I think maybe what I might do is I would go to a place, which we're lucky enough to where there's a lot of places with outdoor seating. That would be probably the only thing that I would do. And other than that, I'm not too comfortable. No, and I do go shopping. I mean, unless we're asking about like retail or whatever. I mean, I go out to the grocery store. I've been to Walmart. I've been to Home Depot. Just a few times. I mean, we make maybe a trip out once a week. I put on my mask. I put on my gloves, like a crazy person, and I do it. And I would say that has changed a lot. I don't know what this scenario has been around where you are, but almost everyone now, when I go into a grocery store, I go to a Walgreens or Home Depot, whatnot, Walmart, I would say 75% of people are wearing masks. Less so with the gloves, so because the gloves are tricky, because you got to because you can do it smart or you can do it stupid, and it's kind of hard to figure out. If I touch the glove and then, what do I do after I take off the glove and all that sort of thing? And it can drive you nuts. And I think I told this story 2 weeks ago. When this stuff was, I relaxed a lot. I was really crazy about everything that came into the house. I was Lysoling it. I was being careful, assuming everything was contaminated. And I was getting to a breaking point. I'm like, I can't do this any longer because I'm going to drive myself nuts. And I literally was. And then I just said, look, just be smart and be careful. Wash your hands and just, my sanity right now is more important than, because I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown before I get the coronavirus, kind of a thing. So I just had to kind of deal with it. I want to curious if all of you have been going through that same kind of a process. Are you kind of relaxing now? If you were at that high level that I was at of basically fear and worry and in that prevention mode, have you relaxed like I have? I'd be curious to know. Now, before we get out of here, I want to say thank you all to. Thank all of you for watching here, for being informed Americans coming on this page. I really love the fact that how much we get interaction of you voting on our polls, commenting. I love the comments. I love reading the comments. I think really this is what I love, just this conversation. So I want to keep it going on. Before I get out of here, though, I do want to say there's two stories coming up as I head out that have come up. One last night and another one this morning that they may be subject of videos next week, which is Michael Flynn. The Department of Justice dropped their case against Michael Flynn. This was essentially the big get from the Mueller investigation, from, if you want to call it a conspiracy to overthrow the president, and it's hard to look at it any other way. They railroaded this guy and it led to, it gave essentially the media and what we saw that led to impeachment. It was to say there's a traitor at a high level in the White House. She's a traitor for the Russians. Then the president, he's an agent of Russia. All this stuff, it was absolute bullcrap. And now, finally, General Flynn has got some justice, and we're going to see what happens with some of these high-level FBI employees that were going after him. We're going to see if there's going to be some justice served that way, going back the other way. I'm curious to know about that. So maybe Monday or Tuesday I can detail what happened with Michael Flynn, if you're not familiar with the story, or if you just want to rant about it with me. Also, this Tara Reade thing, the Joe Biden accuser. This is not going away. And this morning, this comes from Zero Hedge, a 1996 court filing corroborates Biden accuser's claim that she was harassed. This Tara Reade case is not going away. This may be a subject for next week, talking about this latest thing, this another bit possibly of corroboration. And Biden cannot ignore it. The mainstream media cannot ignore it. Of course, they're trying to hide Joe Biden. This is the basement campaign. Hopefully nobody sees him, nobody notices, and just pulls a lever for a guy that they remember from, decades ago, and not maybe the, as I've been calling him, brain dead Biden over the last couple of years. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here because it looks like there might be some trouble with the stream. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you Monday at 1 p.m., by the way.